Okay, so here we go. This is the paper 2 from June 2018, higher tier. Based on the work that we've covered, there's around 54 marks in here that are accessible to us. So that's not far off an A star. So pretty good coverage on this paper. The first page is the formula page. We'll come back to that if we need it. Question 1. Calculate that, giving your answer to 3 significant figures. So this is a calculator paper. Now we can type that into the calculator exactly as it's presented to us. So use the fraction button, 145.3 on the top part of it. That sunshine isn't helping, is it? And then open bracket, 12.4 take away 9.8, close bracket, and then for cubed, it's shift and x squared. So if we write down that calculator and string of answers, so 8.26695, etc, 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 we know we're going to get the mark for correct calculation. Then for the final answer, we need to round up to 3 significant figures. Significant figures, we start counting at the first digit. That's the most significant because it's got the value of 8 units, whereas that's 2/10. So 3 significant figures is going to be 8.2, and then the 6 is going to round to 7 because the next digit along, just like with decimal places, is 5 or more. So the 3 significant figures, we're going to have 8.27. So 1 mark for the calculator answer, 1 mark for the correct rounding. Reciprocal, we've discussed this a number of times in class, means 1 over. So to work out what the reciprocal of 47 is, we're going to do 1 over 47. So on our calculator, 1 over 47 equals, so do the same thing again, 0.021276 dot 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 dot, and then to 4 decimal places. The first decimal place is the first digit after the decimal point, even if it's got a 0 in it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We look at the next digit along, and it's a 7, which means that's going to round up. So that's going to be 0.0213 to 4 decimal places. Same again, 1 mark for the calculated answer, 1 mark for the degree of accuracy they've asked you to give it. Question 2. Circle the correct answer in each of the following. Which of the following values cannot be an external angle of a regular polygon? So the external angle of the regular polygon, if you divide it into 360, will give you the number of sides of the polygon. So that will divide into 360, so that's okay. 360 divided by 18 is a 20-sider. 360 divided by 30 is a 12-sider. 360 divided by 48 is a 7.5-sider. You can't have a 7.5-sided polygon, so that's the one that can't be an external angle. An arrow on a spinner is facing north. It is turned clockwise through an angle of 1530 degrees. In which direction will the arrow now be facing? So in a complete turn there are 360, so it's going to go around, the spinner is going to go around a full turn more than once. So if we do 1530 divided by 360, it's going to go around 4 complete turns and then a quarter of a turn left. So it starts facing north, it's going around 4 times, and it's going clockwise, which is that direction. So it's going to go 4 1/4 times, which means it's going to end up facing in that direction, which is east. Point A is on a bearing of 100 degrees from point B. So from B, so we're standing at B, and a bearing of 100 degrees, that would be 90, south would be 180, so 100 degrees is going to look something like that, which means point A is there. What is the bearing of point B from point A? So if you remember, with bearings, you measure clockwise from north. So I need to work out what that angle is. And if you think of parallel lines, if that's 100, that's 80. Those two interior angles add up to 180. So that's going to be 360 less 80, which is 280 degrees. The other way you could have done that is, you know that there is 100. That means that's going to be 100 there, using the Z angle, and then there's going to be 100 plus the 180 from north to south. 1 mark for each of those. Question 3, our old friend, trial and improvement. And what's unusual about this one is it's the OCW question as well. So we don't have to do anything different here to what we normally do, because we always explain what we're doing. So the solution to that equation lies between 4 and 5. And we want the solution to 1 decimal place. So my answer could be 4.0, 4.1, 4.2, right up to 5.0. We kick out half of them by testing the middle. So where there's an x, there's a bracket. So it's going to be 4.5 cubed minus 7 bracket 4.5 minus 51. Open bracket, 4.5 close bracket cubed. We've already used that, so we know that that's shift x squared. Minus 7 bracket 4.5 minus 51. 8.625. I'm looking for 0, so that's too large. So absolutely no point in trying any value bigger than 4.5. Now I'm going to go halfway, so I'm going to go 4.3. No need to retype it, just use your cursor keys and change the 5 to a 3. Minus 1.593, too small, it's negative. So no point trying anything lower than 4.3. So now to get my consecutive pair, I'm going to go 4.4. 3.384, too big. So there's no point trying anything larger. So I've got my consecutive pair there. So x is either 4.3 or 4.4 to 1 dp. So that means my answer lies somewhere between there. So we test by going halfway. So test using x equals 4.35. So we got 4.35 cubed minus 7 lots of 4.35 minus 51. So this time I need to delete the 4 and replace with 4.35. That's too big. 0.862 ... too big. If that's too big, everything between there is too big. So the answer, so x lies between 4.3 and 4.35. Everything in there rounds to one decimal place to 4.3. In this region rounds to 4.3 to 1 dp. So x equals 4.3. There's nothing different there to what we've done in every single one of these we practiced. M1A1 for getting it down to a consecutive pair, M1 for testing halfway, A1 for showing how that test determines which one decimal place answer you go in with. So +2 there for your OCW. Question 4. The highest common factor of 30 and 75 is the square root of a number. What is the number? So the first thing we've got to do is work out what the highest common factor of 30 and 75 are. So if we list 30, different ways of doing this. I'll show you two ways. We can list the factor pairs of 30. 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 4 doesn't go into it, 5 goes into it 6 times, and then 6, 5, so we've got them all. We do the same for 75, 1 and 75, 2 doesn't go into it, 3 goes into it 25 times, 4 doesn't go into it, 5 goes into it, God, I can't remember, 75 divided by 5, 75 divided by 5 is 15, 6 goes into it, 75 divided by 6, no, 7 doesn't, 8 doesn't, 9 doesn't, 10 doesn't, 11 doesn't, 12 doesn't, 13 doesn't, 14 doesn't, 15, so then we're back to 15 and 5. So we're looking for the largest number that's in both lists, and that's the highest common factor. So the largest number that's in both lists there is 15. Oops. So 15 is the HCF. Now that wasn't too challenging because the numbers are relatively small. The more straightforward way of doing it, or reliable way of doing it, is to use the Venn diagram method. And if you remember, with the Venn diagram method you had to work out what the products of the primes were, and usually that comes up on a non-calculator paper where you've got to do the repeated division. But on your calculator there's the button above the time button which says fact. Okay, and what that does, if I show you, if you enter 30, okay, so you've got to put it, you've got to press equals so it comes down here, and then if you do shift fact, it turns it into the product of its prime factors. So 30 is that, 75 equals shift fact 3 times 5 times 5. Now for the Venn diagram method, so that's going to be the factors of 30, that's going to be 75. Any common overlaps go in the intersection, so 3 is in both, so that goes there, and there is a 5 in both, so that goes there. That leaves a 2 in the 30 and a 5 in the 75. If the question was talking about the lowest common multiple, that would be 2 times 3 times 5 times 5. The highest common factor is the middle, the overlap, which is 15. Okay, so on a calculator paper, that is actually just as quick, or if not quicker, than listing your factor pairs of each number. Now, we haven't finished this yet, because this is saying the highest common factor is the square root of a number. So the square root of something is 15, and it's the something that they want us to work out here. So in order to do that, we've got to undo a square root, which is squaring. So the answer is going to be 15 squared. Oops. Which is 225. 1 mark for getting the highest common factor of 15. 1 mark for going ahead and working out what the number actually is. So it's up to you what you do, but that factor button is really helpful on paper 2. Okay, 4b, the cube root of 32.768. So cube root of 32.768 is 33.33% of a number. Now 33.33%, if you know your equivalent fractions, is a third. Okay, common mistake is people think is a third is 0.3. It's not. A third is 0.3 recurring, which is 33.33%. So I'll show you 2 ways of doing this as well. First of all, let's work out what our cube root is. So the cube root is shift square root, just above it, 32.768. So a third of the number, so 33.33% is 1/3. So if that's a third of the number, to work out what the number is, so 1/3 of 3.2, sorry, 1/3 of the number, we don't know what it is 3.2. So if 1/3 is 3.2, the number is going to be 3/3, so it's going to be that times 3. So 3.2 times 3, 9.6. That's the easiest way of doing it if you can recognize that 33.33% is a third. If not, so let's just do this down here, you've got 33.1/3% of that number is 3.2. So to work out what the number is, you've got to do 3.2 divided by 33.1/3%, which you can do on the calculator. What we've got there is a fraction, and on top of that fraction we're going to put 3.2, and on the bottom we've got to put 33.1/3%. Now if you look at the shift option for this button, it gives you 3 little blocks, and that's what you use if you've got a mixed number like we've got here. So 33, and then move into the fraction 1/3, and then remember we've got this as a percentage, and the percent button is down there. Okay, so we can put it in exactly as I've seen it, and we'll get the same answer of 9.6. But the time I've spent blabbing on about that 33.1/3% now, hopefully that will stick in your mind. Similarly, 66.2/3% would be 2/3. So 1 mark there would be for getting 3.2. Second mark would be for getting the 9.6. PQR is a right angle triangle. Okay, straight away I'm thinking Pythagorean trig. Pythag should come first. So let's have a look. So right angle triangle is shown below. PQ is 1.41. PR is 0.89. Calculate the length of QR. So I'm not being asked to find an angle. I'm not being given an angle. I'm given 2 sides. To find the third, it's Pythag. So QR is going to be the square root of the squares of these. Now the only decision you have to make is, am I going to add these together or subtract them? If you're trying to find the longest side, which you are in this case, because the right angle box points at the longest side, then we want to make the overall total larger before square rooting, so we're going to add them. So 0.89 squared plus 1.41 squared. If we ended up that we needed to subtract them, then please make sure under here it's always going to be the largest one, take away the smallest one, otherwise you'll get an error. Doesn't matter in this case because we're adding, the order doesn't matter. 0.89 squared plus 1.41 squared. So I've typed it in exactly as I've seen it. Write down your calculator string 1.66739 dot dot dot. It's not asking you for a given degree of accuracy, so if that's where you leave it, that's fine. The good manners to do is to use the same degree of accuracy that they provided you. So they work into 2 decimal places. So to 2 decimal places, that would be 1.67 because that rounds up. So 3 marks for that. 1 mark for the correct addition and forming of that, and 1 mark for your final answer. Question 6, probability trees. Visitors to the top of Snowdon can either walk up the mountain or take the railway. On a particular day, a visitor to the top of Snowdon is chosen at random. The probability that the person is female is 0.42. The probability that they took the train is 0.35. The decision to walk or take a train is independent of gender. Complete the tree diagram shown below. So these two have to add up to 1. So that one's going to be 1 minus 0.42, 0.58. These have to add up to 1. The probability that they took the train is 0.35. So walk is going to be 1 minus 0.35, 0.65, and then that is repeated down here. So this is a more straightforward one where they haven't given you the outcome of female and walk, and you've got to work out what that missing gap is. The person chosen at random receives a gift voucher. What's the probability that this person is female and travelled up the mountain by train? So female and train. There's only one way that can go. So I'm not coming back to say either that way or that way. If the question had asked for what's the probability that the person travelled by train, then that would mean you'd be doing female and train or male and train. We're not using the word or here, so we're going to multiply. When we use the word and in probability, we multiply the probabilities together. So we have to do 0.42 multiplied by what have I done there? 0.35. So 0.42 multiplied by 0.35 equals 0.147. So there's 1 mark for completing the first branch, 1 mark for completing the second, and 1 mark for duplicating the third. And then for this one, there's a method mark for multiplying the correct probabilities together, and an answer mark for 0.147. Question 7, similarity. Diagrams below show 2 similar shapes. In maths, if they're mathematically similar, it means that every side in one shape, smaller shape, every side in the larger shape is multiplied by the same scale factor as the smaller shape. So this one's a nice one because the 2 shapes are corresponding already. We don't have to untangle them or turn them around or anything. So you're looking for a pair of corresponding sides, you know. So I've got that there. So what I've got to work out is what do I have to multiply that by to make that. And the way that I do that is divide the bigger one by the smaller one. So 8.4 divided by 5.6, 1.5 times bigger. So every side in this shape is 1.5 times that shape. So x is going to be 3.2 the corresponding side in the smaller shape multiplied by 1.5, the scale factor. So 3.2 times 1.5 is 4.8. So I know that x is 4.8. Now when I'm shrinking to find the value of y, I've got to do the opposite of multiplying by the scale factor. So for y, it's going to be 6.3 divided by 1.5. So y is 4.2. Part C. Explain clearly why the following statement cannot be true. The length of CD is 3.9 and the length of RS is 6.5. Why can that not be true? Well, it can't be true because RS, if I do 3.9 times 1.5, I get 5.85, not 6.5. So why can it not be true? Because if 3.9, sorry, if CD is 3.9, then RS is 3.9 times 1.5, which is 5.85. So scale factor is different. This is the important part. The scale factor is different. What you could have done is just worked out what the scale factor is between these two. So if you'd have done 6.5 divided by 3.9, you can see the scale factor isn't 1.5. Either way, it's fine. So 2 marks for explaining that. Question 8. A rectangle of length 12 centimeters and width 2x minus y has an area of 72 square centimeters. The perimeter of the kite, KLMN is a kite where 3x, KL is 3x, and LM is y. The perimeter of the kite KLMN is 33 centimeters. Calculate the values of x and y. You must show you working. Do not use a trial and improvement method. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get the equations over here. So the area of a rectangle is that times that. So 12 times 2x minus y equals 72. Alright, what shall I do here? I'll do it the way we always do it, so it's consistent. So 12 times 2x is 24x minus 12y equals 72. So that's one equation. And then for this one, I know the perimeter, I know it's a kite, so it's symmetrical. So if that's 3x, that's 3x, and that's y. So the perimeter of this shape is going to be 3x plus 3x is 6x plus 2y. So there to there to there to there equals 33. So that's my pair of simultaneous equations that I need to manipulate in order to work those out. Now, I've always told you that in order to make the x's the same, we multiply the first equation by that number, so that by 6, and this equation by that number to multiply by 24. But I'm looking at this and I know that I can make 624 just by multiplying that by 4. So if I rewrite the first one, and then for the second one, if I do equation 2 times 4, it'll give me what I want without dealing with bigger numbers. So 4 times 6 is 24x, 2 4s are 8 equals 33 times 4, 132. So I'll call those equation 3, equation 4. If you had multiplied them all out, you'd still end up getting the right answer, the same answers, but you're just dealing with much bigger numbers because you're going to be multiplying that whole one by 24. Now we subtract. 24x take away 24x, gone. This one, be careful, you're doing minus 12 take away 8 is minus 20y. 72 take away 132. Sorry, 72 take away 132 is minus 60. To get the y on its own, we have to divide by minus 20, which means we have to do the same there. So that'll give us y equals, if you're not confident with the dividing by minus signs, put in the calculator, minus 60 divided by minus 20 is 3. If you mess that up and you've got a negative answer there, then because the context of the question is lengths, you know you can't have a negative length, so that should have set off alarm bells then. What have I done wrong? So I know what y is. I now need to get x, so I'm going to put that into equation 2 is the easiest one because it's smaller numbers. So sub y in 2. But you could have put it in 1, it wouldn't make any difference, you're just dealing with larger numbers. So 6x plus 2, and instead of y you put a 3 in brackets, equals 33. 6x plus 6 equals 33. I want to get the x on its own. First of all, I'm going to take off 6. It gives me 6x on that side. 33 take away 6. 27 on that side. Divide by 6. Divide by 6. Gives you x equals 4.5. Okay, 5 marks for that. So the first mark is for creating the simultaneous equations. Then you've got a method mark for eliminating x or y, and an answer mark for getting y equals 3. You've got a method mark for substituting your answer to eliminate and get the x on its own, and 1 mark for your final calculation, your final value of x. Question 9. Right angle triangles. We've done Pythag. This is almost certainly going to be trig. In triangle ABC, okay, so that's this triangle here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to redraw that. I don't like this tangling. Let's just work with what we need to work with. So in triangle ABC, AB is 6.5 and BC is 10.4. In triangle CDE, so CDE over here, CDE, CE is 9.4. First thing they want us to do, BCE is 22, so BCE is 22. So at the moment I can't put that in that diagram, because in this diagram I got a 22 plus an x, and I know that that is x. So I want to work out the value of x. So it looks a bit confusing and tangled up in that diagram, but in this diagram much more straightforward. It is trig because I've got a right angle triangle, I know 2 sides, and they want me to find an angle. So I label my sides. Hypotenuse pointed at by the right angle box. opposite the angle we know, or the one we're trying to find, and the adjacent, the one that's left. So let's do our little SOHCAHTOAs. I've got to have opposite and adjacent in it, so it's TOA. Cover up what you're trying to find. If it's the angle is attached to the S, C or T. So the angle tan of X is op over adjacent. Because the O is on top of the A. So tan of X, in our case, is 6.5 over 10.4. And then because we want to break in to get the X, we've got to undo a tan. We've got to do the opposite of tanning, which is, there's tan, the opposite is above it, tan minus 1. So X is tan minus 1 of 6.5 over 10.4. We put that in our calculator exactly as we see it. So shift tan fraction 6.5 10.4 out of the fraction, close the bracket. 32 degrees. So that's part A. We now know that that is 32. So we know that that is 32, which means the angle up here we now know is 54. Part B. Hence find the length of DE. So now we're in this triangle. We've figured that that's 54. That's our op. This is what we're trying to find. Sorry, what am I on about? This is the op. That's the hype. Pointing at by the right angle, the opposite. So we're looking for, and this is the adjacent, we're looking for the relationship that ties what I'm trying to find and what I know together. So it's got to have opposite in it, it's got to have hypotenuse, it's sine. We're trying to find the opposite, so we cover the opposite up. The S and the H are on the same level, so it's a multiply. So we're going to be using sine of the angle is opposite, sorry, no it's not. Opposite is what we're trying to find, is sine of the angle times the hype. So sine of 54 times the hype. So that works out to be, on our calculator, clear that one, sine 54 close bracket times 9.4 7.6 centimeters. Okay, marks for that. Method mark for correctly getting your tan and the 6.5 over 10.4. Answer mark for 32 degrees. Method mark for the correct use of trig there and having the 54 degree angle. Answer mark for everything correct in there, and then one for the correct calculation. Question 10. Right, using the method that we've practiced with this, it's a bit of a pain because I am making you recognize that you can write that as 4m squared plus no m term minus 289, and then I was making you multiply that together and so on, and you can do that, but there's going to be pretty big job for you to do for 2 marks with this, because then if you do 4 times 289 it's 1156, and then I'd be making you list all the factor pairs of 1156 to work out what pair of them add to give 0. If we'd have had time to do this over a longer length of time, I would explain to you that that's the difference of two squares. It happens when the two numbers that you've got are square numbers. So the square root of that one is 2, and the square root of 289 is 17. So once you spot that you've got two square numbers, you can just write this down. Okay? It's going to be the square root of that number, the square root of that number, and then one of them will be plus, one of them will be minus. It's called the difference of two squares. I didn't want at the time to give you an extra method to try and remember, and up until this particular paper we've got away with it, but with this one it would just take too long to figure that out. So you're just looking, oh, there's no middle term, is this a difference of two square numbers? Yes, I can square root that one, yes, I can square root that one. So if you can remember that, then that's actually easier than the way that I've shown you previously. Question 11 we can't do. Question 12 we can, because we know how to solve quadratic equations. So they've done the first one for you. So for this one, to make that product equal 0, either x equals 0 or 2x plus 3 equals 0. Take 3 off each side, divide by 2. So I'm looking for x equals 0, x equals minus 3 over 2. Which is there. So that one goes there. For this one, either x minus 1 equals 0, add 1 to each side, or that equals 0, which we've done up there. No, we haven't. This time is positive. We add 3 to each side, we divide by 2. So I'm looking for x equals 1, x equals 3 over 2. Which is there. This one, either 2x minus 3 equals 0, add 3, divide by 2, or this equals 0, subtract 3, divide by 2. So it's either 3 over 2 or minus 3 over 2, which is that one there. And finally 4x plus 9 all squared equals 0. So for that one, there's only going to be one solution because those are the same. If you're squaring, you're multiplying by itself. So we need 4x plus 9 to equal 0. Take 9 off each side, divide by 4. So I'm looking for x equals minus 9 over 4, which is that one. Okay, so that is a different way of working with quadratic equations. 1 mark for each correct answer. Question 13 is a bit more complicated to what we usually do. Let's give it a go. So values of a, b and c are each correct to two significant figures. So for a, to two significant figures, that means it's either going to be 27, next one up 28, next one down 26. So halfway between, the minimum value for that will be 26.5, the maximum value 27.5. For b, 1.9, one up will be 2.0, one down will be 1.8, and the dividing values will be 1.85, 1.95. And then C, 0.81. Next one up would be 0.82. Next one down, 0.80. Dividing those would be 0.805 and 0.815. Use the formula to calculate the smallest value of D. So for the smallest value of D, with the division you want the smallest value on top and the largest value on the bottom. So D, you want smallest divided by largest. So the largest value of C is going to be 0.815. And to make this subtraction as small as possible, you want A to be small and B to be big. So that is going to give us our smallest possible value of D. So fraction button, 26.5, take away 1.95 on top, and 0.815 underneath. So the least value of D is going to be 30.12269 dot 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 dot, and we're working to two significant figures, which will be 30. So that's quite a hard one, which is why I don't think I ticked it as one we could do. Question 13. Oh yeah, no, it was one we could do. Okay, but there's marks for working out, showing that you're working with the limits. Question 14, we can't do. Question 15, yes we can. Kiss and smile. So the kiss bit is where we're multiplying that bit, and then the smile is for the bottom part. So the top is going to be 2 times that minus 7 times that, all over 3x minus 5 multiplied by 11x minus 30. Okay, we leave the bottom untouched, so we don't go multiplying out the bottom, but we tidy up the top. 2 times 11x, 22x, 2 times 13 minus 26. With this one, 7 3s, 21x, minus times a plus, minus. 7 5s, 35, minus times a minus is a plus. All over 3x minus 5, 11x minus 13. I can tidy this up because I've got 22, take away 21x is x, and then I've got minus 26 plus 35, 9. So I've got x plus 9 on the top, 3x minus 5, 11x minus 13 on the bottom. Job done. So you've got a method and an answer mark for correctly combining your fractions. You've got an answer mark for correctly expanding the brackets on the top, and an answer mark for correctly simplifying the values that are on the top. And that is it. That is my, no it isn't, question 17. Giving up too soon. So solve the equation 2x plus 5 double bracketed 3x minus 11 equals 7. Now I know that I can multiply that out using FOIL, and when I do that I'm going to have x squareds, x's and numbers. I know on this paper the quadratic equation formula is coming up, because it always does, and I haven't used it yet. The fact they're telling you to give your answer to 2 decimal places is the trigger that this is the quadratic equation question. So before I can use the formula, I've got to get it in the form an x squared term, an x term, and a number term equals 0. So let's get rid of the brackets first of all. So 2x times 3x, 6x squared. 2x times 11 is 22x, plus times a minus is a minus. Then I'm doing 5 times 3x is 15x, plus times a plus is a plus. And then 5 times 11 is 55, plus times a minus is a minus. Well, I know it has to equal 0, so I need to take 7 off that side, and I've got to take 7 then off that side as well to make that go across. So I've only got one x squared term. Then I've got 22 minus 22 plus 15 minus 7x, and then I've got minus 55, take away 7, minus 62 equals 0. So A is 6, B is negative 7, C is negative 62. Plonk it into the formula. Remember, wherever there's a letter, use a bracket. So I've got minus B, which will be minus 7, plus or minus the square root of B squared, minus 4 times A times C, all over 2 times A. Do some tidying. Minus 7 is plus 7. Minus 7 squared. Remember, be careful with this. If you're not able just to write it down as 49, you've got to use the bracket if you're squaring a negative number. Plus 49. Then I've got 4 times 6 times 62. Four times 6 times 62 is 1488. Minus times a minus is a plus. I've said this on several video clips. You can't take a square root of a negative number. So if you'd have messed up that and ended up with 49 take away 1488, when you try to square root it, you get an error. Go back then, check your work. Okay, and tidy up what's underneath the square root. So 1488 plus 49, square root 1537, all divided by 12. Okay, that's as far as I can get without breaking the plus or minus. So this is where we go either x is 7 plus the square root of 1537 over 12. So on my calculator screen, it's going in, oops, exactly as I've written it. So fraction button on the top, 7 plus the square root of 1537 over 12. 2 decimal places, 3.85. Or x is 7 minus let's go back in, cursor keys, and change that plus to a subtract. Minus 2.2 decimal places, 68. Job done. So you're going to have 2 marks for getting the quadratic. You're going to have a mark for correctly substituting everything in. You're going to have a mark for getting it down to the plus or minus, etc., etc., and then a mark for your 2 answers. And that really is it now. We can't do 18 or 19. So there you go. That's the last practice paper that we are going to do for higher tier paper 2, and quite probably last paper that I'll ever work out as Jones' sums. Hopefully you found that useful.